The following day, Mike hedged around the question when I asked what sort of work he did. He owned some stores. His wife had some retail lines, but it was all pretty clear from the start that it was just a way to launder money. The black money was coming from somewhere. Some people move beyond the realms of normal financial planning. Imagine, why settle for 2% interest if you can do so much better? Yes, there is a moral or ethical price to pay, but what does that really cost? After all, who will know? And if you've known poverty and fear, that moral cost is pretty easily stomached. It washes away the hollow taste of worry. The marginal landscape, where euphemistic phrases hide true meanings, is the landscape of compromised morality. Mike was well into that territory. He'd known poverty after running away from his father at 16. He'd known the pain of hunger and the horrible desperation of not knowing where the next meal would come from. The shame of poverty is nothing compared to the fear and pain of not knowing what will happen from one meal to the next, where to sleep, how to find sustenance. If Mike had got one thing from his tortuous journey through adolescence, it was a work ethic of tempered steel. I'm not usually interested in how my clients make their money. I've learned over the years it doesn't pay to be judgmental. My clients are more likely to own the bank than rob it, generally speaking. However, there's no doubt that sometimes my clients are involved in crime. Does that mean I shouldn't sort out their habit? No. Maybe they're trying to get things straight. It's not my place to judge. Besides which, if a gangster wants to get his girlfriend clean, why would I not take on the job? On the couch, Mike's story gradually revealed itself over a series of counselling sessions. I'm not going to recount the full details, they're just not that interesting. Dad was in the military. He had two hobbies. One was collecting German military memorabilia, and the other was beating the living daylights out of his wife. They moved around from military base to military base while Mike grew up. Eventually, while stationed in Germany, Mike's mother had enough and just disappeared. This allowed his father to shift focus and beat his son instead of his wife. Mike's life was never the same again. That's when things went bad. At 16 he left home, and by 19 he was doing his first spell in prison. It didn't go well. He could barely even talk about it. The damage done by his experience of corrections set his path once and for all. Jail is simply no place for a young man. Mike took off to Asia shortly after he had done his stretch. He came back and almost got his life together, but it was only temporary. There was a girl he loved and lost, a baby that grew up somewhere, and then he was doing stuff in Vancouver. Doing stuff is never good. It's either getting high or doing something illegal he didn't want to talk about. Whatever. When you hypnotize a subject, a strange thing happens. Of course, they are receptive to suggestion. That's the obvious thing about hypnosis and what everybody focuses on. But there's something else. There's an exchange of trust. The subject consents to allow a level of influence, and the hypnotist too consents to a level of intimacy. It's not just about pushing them to do something. There's also a degree of joining with them to achieve some end. It's not an easy thing to explain, but for a hypnotist who genuinely steps into the role, it is one of both privilege and union. There's intimacy and almost seduction. There's a positive result at the end of it, or that's the plan. With someone like Mike, if you're good, you can turn a few switches on and others off. You can change a few values. Of course, it helps if you know which ones to turn off. And that's the tricky bit. Mike had been using crack several times a day for months by the time he came in to see me. He'd used coke on and off over the years, and somehow he'd managed to keep that in check. Addicted, but somehow not really out of control. Crack was another story. I had him check into a nearby hotel, and we worked together daily. His regime included working with a personal trainer I enlisted. Sophie was 30 and had the body of a woman 10 years younger. Her body, like her nature, was hard, lean, and unforgiving. All of these attributes are valuable in the kind of work we do. Mike's day would start with yoga. That was a surprise for a guy who'd never tried it before. Within a few days he was enjoying it and getting both an emotional and physical benefit from it. We use a similar process with a lot of our addicts. It works well during the withdrawals and helps them stay off later. After yoga, he would get into a high-protein breakfast before coming to the office for an hour of hypnosis. This was combined with counseling and some analysis. Within a few days, we knew exactly what made Mike tick. There are no secrets when you work at this level. After lunch, Mike worked out with Sophie running around Falls Creek or in the gym. He was dedicated and he worked hard. Next was the sauna, part of the detox process. This helped overcome the withdrawal symptoms. He didn't have a lot of choice about the process up to this point in the day. Either Sophie or I or another of my staff would push him from one task to another. After dinner he'd work on either reading or journaling. And then the tough part. At the end of the day he had the chance to watch television or just do what he wanted. This period was the opportunity to fail. Make no mistake, this was intentional. If there's no opportunity to fail, there's no means to tell that the system's working. Just locking a person down does nothing of any value. The moment they get the chance to leave, they'll just blow it. It just doesn't work, as is clearly shown by the horrendous failure rates of most rehabs. Instead, we give our clients the opportunity to fail. Throughout the day, they've remained focused on their success. They've worked hard to achieve it. Hypnosis has reinforced their will. They've been given the opportunity to win this vicious struggle. For these efforts to go untested would be to invalidate them completely, and so the opportunity to fail is offered, and with it comes the opportunity to succeed.